everybody, this is the Wild Ass PodcASSt, and I am your host, Wild Ass Craig. This is episode 21, and in this episode, I get to introduce all of you to my friend, Dylan Dwyer. This episode will be a little different than most, because Dylan is sitting right across the desk from me here at the world headquarters of Wild Ass, so I hope you all like this one. People from small towns all seem to know each other. This one's no different. Dylan and I have been crossing paths for as long as I can remember, and over the past few years, we actually became friends. Instead of me reading a long bio with you sitting right here, I'm just going to say it now. Dylan, welcome to the show.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Are you excited? You're sitting in the world headquarters of Wild Ass, the now also podcast studio?
Yeah, this is wonderful. But I do feel kind of right at home here, so it's nice.
The nice thing about being local is you get to stop by, say hi from time to time. All those cool things. Get to see what goes on behind the scenes a little bit.
Exactly. Get to see the mess.
Yeah. So I always say when people, that you mentioned the mess, so I want to talk about this. All this stuff up behind me on the wall, you people see it on Wild Ass Wednesdays on Facebook every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Central Time. We'll put a plug in there. Everything on there has a story, and every time somebody stops by, I ask, if you want to hear anything, you just point it out, and I'll tell you the story behind it. We won't do that now. I can see you're thinking, because we got a podcast to go. We can. You know what? Let's do it. If you have something you see up there, you can ask me this story.
Actually, I don't have a question, but I was looking at that RC Raceway trophy. I went home the other day, and I noticed that mine is smaller than yours. So that's all I have.
Well, maybe we'll have to get back into that this winter and see if we can't go. Both of us get bigger trophies, because it's all about the trophies. We'll hear that later on, I'm sure.
All right.
So you're from the area. Tell us where you grew up. Tell us a little bit about your past.
Well, I grew up right here around Brainerd, about halfway between Brainerd and a small town called Pillager. I actually had a Brainerd address, but a Pillager school district, so I went to Pillager schools. But yeah, I've been around here. I think we moved up from Wilmer when I was like 3 or 4 years old. So I've been in the Brainerd area my whole life. And
so where your parents live now, is that where you grew up?
Yeah, I think they built that place in like 1980.
Little story for everybody listening. That's 1 mile from where I live now.
Exactly. In fact, where you live now used to be some of my old three-wheeler trails. There's a big mud hole right behind the Dueling Rooster Raceway.
Yeah, there's power lines. It's all swamp back there.
Yeah, there used to be nobody around there. It was like 2 farms and us.
I wish you could go back on Google Maps and like see, maybe you can, see pictures of 10 years, 5 years previous and see how far back you could go. That'd be interesting, especially where we live. You actually went to school with Renee, but I think you're a little bit younger.
Yeah, I was, 3 years younger than her. She was the same age as my sister, so I remember being real little and Renee was spending the night with my sister. So
okay, that's funny.
I've known Renee for 1,000 years. So.
Yeah, well, not to age anybody, but yeah, probably. The other thing, I have a note here, you went to school with your wife.
I did. Tell
us about that, your high school sweethearts?
Yeah, we've been married 21 years. We started dating 31 years ago. And I've known her forever. We were in kindergarten together. She actually got held back a year, but so through high school she was a year behind me. But I've known her forever. So
high school sweethearts, still together. Not a very common story. How many kids do you have?
We have one kid. He's just about to turn 21 now. So not so much a kid anymore, but.
It's crazy. So I have to ask you these questions like I don't know them because the listeners don't know. But it's funny, how fast these kids grow up, for sure. Does everybody in your family ride? I know the answer to this too, but...
For a lot of years we did. I know like for quite a while there, my son would race on Friday nights, Misty would race hare scrambles on Saturdays, and then we'd all 3 get together and go ride at like a practice track, like a Tracks North or whatever on Sunday. So yeah, we spent a lot of time riding together as he was growing up. And that was fun, but it's also a full-time job. You'd ride for, dirt bikes, so everything has to work right, or it's not real safe.
Yep.
So we'd ride for a little while, then Monday was all day washing bikes and seeing what was broken, ordering parts. Parts would come in on Thursday, get everything put together on Friday, and off you go and do it over again.
The beauty of small town, parts aren't always readily available.
Right, so it was kind of exciting when he decided he wanted to get out of it. I'm like, yes. But now I'd like to have it back. Those were good times. We were up at Tracks North a couple weeks ago visiting with everybody and talking about stuff, and it made me miss it.
Yeah, for that reason, I've stayed away from dirt bike tracks now for 12 years. Right. So I think I threw a leg over a dirt bike once, maybe 8 to 10 years ago, somewhere in there. It was one time. Still have the dirt bike just in case, but I'd kind of like to get back on it now.
And it looks like a great idea, but if you hang out long enough, you'll see somebody crash, and it's like, oh, I don't know, And that's what we did there the other day. So, yeah, right in front of us, somebody came up short on a double and bounced pretty hard. And, yeah, I've done the exact same crash myself. I know what it's like, and it's like, yeah, maybe we'll just stick to the roads for a while.
Yeah. Tell everybody, how did you get into riding? Like, how did you get into it at first?
Right after kindergarten or first grade, I don't remember, but my dad bought us a Honda 50 for me and my sister. I was probably a little bit small for it, but it fit her. And yeah, we wore that thing out in the summer, and I think the next year we got another one. And we lived out in the country, so we always had stuff like that, motorcycles, three-wheelers, and everything else. When I got to be like 16 years old, I kind of got shifted over to cars, because I wanted to get out and, be free. So I kind of put the bikes away for a while and got out of it, but yeah, I always enjoyed them. Even on the years I wasn't riding, I always followed Supercross and motocross. I loved that stuff. And eventually I was at a point where I could afford to get back into it, and we did.
And did it as a family at that point, right?
Exactly.
So how did you go, so you grew up with dirt bikes. How did you go from dirt to street? When did that all come about?
I was working at a local dealership here, Brothers Motorsports. And part of the job I did involved messing around with street bikes. And I got an endorsement for that reason. And on the weekends and evenings and everything else, I was always taking something from the used inventory and taking it home and riding it. After a couple of years of doing that, I decided to buy my own and just had a hoot.
What was your what was your first bike?
It was a 2002 Suzuki SV650.
It's a great bike. I think they use those road racing, don't they?
They do. They compete like against the 1200 Harleys. So that gives you an idea of the Japanese versus American edition.
Yeah.
And, and the Ducatis, all that, they're all in the same class.
Did you ever do that? Did you ever take it up to the track?
No, I never did. I'm glad I didn't, because that would have been another bad hobby. So,
so what's the progression of bikes since that one?
After I got rid of that one, I went without for a while. Like I say, my son got to the age where he didn't want Dad to leave during the day. So if I wasn't at work, I didn't want to just leave him hanging. So we played with him for a while. Eventually, he was old enough to where he didn't care so much anymore. Didn't want to hang out with Dad. And I was actually in the hobby of flipping ATVs and motorcycles and stuff for profit. And I found a 2002 Harley Sportster for sale on, I think it was Craigslist. And it was cheap. I knew I could make a good profit off it, so I went and checked it out. I rode it home, and I got probably halfway home, and I decided I'm keeping it. And it broke my number one rule, don't fall in love. But yeah, I knew right away I wanted it. I rode that one, I think, probably 3 or 4 years before trading up to something else. Yeah, I like the Sportsters. But the best way to describe them is, they feel like you're on a motorcycle. Suspension's horrible, the brakes are horrible, the motors vibrate, and I'm kind of a sick guy. I love it.
That's that old school dirt bike stuff.
Exactly, and it feels like a vintage bike, but yet it's reliable like a new bike.
From the Sportster, what happened?
So I was the only one in the family with a road bike at the time, and my wife Misty, she decided that she kind of liked it, or she was interested in doing it. So I was all excited about that. She got her learner's permit. I thought, cool, I'll be able to spend some time bonding with the wife, teaching her how to ride a bike. And I showed her where the key was and the start button, and she left. And that was the end of my teaching. She was it was over after that. I think I gave her just a couple small pointers after that to help her pass her test, and that was it. And for my 40th birthday, I decided I was going to give her my old bike, and I was going to buy a brand new one for myself. So we bought another Sportster, a brand new 8883, and I got to ride that maybe 20, 30 miles, and she took it. So, so I stuck with the old one for a few more years. So yeah, that was fun, though. Then we finally had a pair of them. We could go and ride together, and good times.
She grew up riding, though, right?
She did.
She grew up around the sport, for sure.
Yeah, her dad has been he's retired now, but he was a motorcycle mechanic. Well, I say motorcycle, but basically all forms of motorsports.
Yeah.
So, yeah, same deal. Whether it was their own machines or he just brought them home for the weekends, she always had stuff laying around. And yeah, so she grew up riding. And like I say, before she went to the street, she had actually just gotten done racing a season of AMA hare scrambles, which, if you don't know what hare scrambles are, it's basically racing a motorcycle through the woods.
Yeah, it's through, I always call them goat trails, basically. You race for an hour through the woods. Was she women or girls class?
Women.
Yes, that's a 1 hour.
Yeah, roughly. It was basically 1 hour plus a lap, depending on where you were. Sometimes it was only one lap, sometimes it was 4 laps.
If I remember correctly, it's a distance, whatever the distance is, could be 8, could be 20 miles, but the finish line is 1 hour. So once it hits 1 hour, then as you come across, you're done, right? Or is it plus 1 lap?
Because I believe it is 1 hour, so if you come through at 59 minutes, you're doing another lap.
Yeah, okay. Yep. Yeah, that's what I remember.
And we've been to some gnarly ones where most people didn't even do 1 lap. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty cool.
No, that's awesome. Little known fact in the world, her dad was the only guy at that dealership allowed to work on our race bikes when I was a kid. You remember that?
I do. I remember your dad would tip Bill some booze every Christmas, and yeah, I probably got into some of that myself. So.
I think it was. I was trying to think of that. I think it was E&J.
Yeah, something.
Big
like
jug
that.
of E&J brandy was his tip every Christmas time. We're doing such a good job all year. Yeah, Bill's awesome. From the Sportster, how did you get up to the bike you have now? What was the chain of bikes?
Well, I love the Sportsters around here. We've got tight, twisty roads, not a lot of high speeds, and they're great for that. But then we'd go out west for like the Sturgis Rally every fall, or every summer, I guess, and it always felt underpowered. Get into bigger country, bigger hills, bigger open spaces, and it just felt like they wouldn't move. So I came up with a plan, I think it was in 2016. Yeah, it was 2016. I decided I was going to buy a black road glide while I was out there. That's kind of what I wanted. And we rode around all week, and at the time I kind of got the impression that baggers were kind of useless, because everywhere we went I was stuck behind a bunch of them going ridiculously slow. And I like to go, when I ride, I like to kind of go a little bit faster than you should, especially through corners. I like to corner hard and everything, and I convinced myself that they just wouldn't work for that. So we were at the big bike tent there in Rapid City, and I spotted a Dyna Street Bob. And I thought, well, that's cool. You know, it had the mid pegs, had everything else. Didn't look like a bunch of stuff would drag on the ground. So I bought the Dyna instead. We actually bought it on the way home. And I rode it home, got one thunderstorm and 2 raccoons, or 2 thunderstorms and 1 raccoon on the way home. I don't remember. But it was a rough ride home. So yeah, I went to the Dyna after the Sportsters. And yeah, so for quite a while there, we had me on the Dyna and Misty on the newer Sportster. And she wanted something more comfortable for herself. So she ended up buying, I think, a 2019 Softail Deluxe. And she put the windshield and everything on it. Nice, big, comfortable bike for her.
Yeah.
And she was actually craving, straighter roads, more miles, faster riding, stuff like that. Whereas I was getting beat up with no windshield and everything else. So I decided I needed something to keep up with her. And I ended up with a black bagger.
This black bagger has a bit of a story, though. So I'd like you to share that. How you found it, and then the story of actually going and retrieving it.
Well, I decided I wanted something to kind of blend in with the crowd. Being I had spent so much time giving people on baggers a hard time, I felt horrible getting into one myself. So I thought if I get a real basic one, I'll blend in, nobody will notice. So what it came down to is I decided I wanted to use the Road King. And then another benefit of the Road King is you can take the windshield off. I still love riding without a windshield when I can, if the conditions are right. So anyway, we were looking for a used Road King. I spent probably half the winter looking around, and I found one on Marketplace. I think it was a 2011, and the price seemed okay. It was low miles, so I called on it, and the guy talked to me for probably about an hour. He went on and on about his story. Turns out he was 84 years old. His family was making him sell the motorcycle because he was too old for it. And after quite a while of talking to me, I had basically had to try to convince him that I was the right guy for his bike. And we kind of agreed on a price over the phone. I hadn't actually seen the bike or anything. But I decided to go down there and pick it up one day. And yeah, I get there. Like I say, he was 84. He had been riding for 69 years. And he was a hairdresser in Minneapolis. And a lot of his clients were the big bike clubs of the time, Hell's Angels and everybody else. He wasn't a member himself, but he was friends with everybody because he did their hair.
Sure.
So he had just countless of stories, and he had photo albums of him on old bikes way back in the day. And he went on and on. A pretty cool guy. And when we were on the phone talking, he was asking me about places that we go. And I had mentioned that I had never been to Daytona Bike Week. Well, when I got there, he had a bunch of stuff waiting for me, cleaning supplies and everything else. And he had this Daytona 1993 shirt that was his. And he gave me that because I had never been there before. I thought that was pretty cool. So that shirt's been with the bike. It's been in the saddlebag for every mile I've put on it since. I think I've had it for 2 years.
Yeah, that's really cool. So he kept you on the phone for an hour. He was making sure you were the right buyer.
Right. He's kind of like me. It wasn't about the money. He wanted to make sure he was doing the right thing.
Yeah. Doing right by his motorcycle.
Exactly. So, yeah, I've left it a lot. You know, it basically looks the same way as it did when I bought it. I made a couple small changes, but I think if he saw it on the street somewhere, he'd recognize it.
Yeah.
So
At 84, he probably would.
He would. He was a pretty sharp guy. He knew what was going on. So.
Yeah. So you and your wife riding, she's kind of your main riding partner, huh?
Yeah, she's a pain in my ass, but it's nice to have someone as crazy as I am, or whatever. You know, for the last 31 years, basically anything I've ever taken an interest in, she's right there with me, and vice versa. So it has been good to have a partner for just about everything.
That's cool, and she rides well.
She does. Yeah.
She does.
Like I say, she took to it naturally. I didn't give her much coaching at all. In fact, I had to kind of push her into some bad habits. So
I was thinking of it today, and some of our first rides together probably were the Craig Johnson Memorial rides.
I believe they were.
So, listeners, I have my own memorial ride because I'm too greedy to let all my friends have it after I'm dead. And this year we had our 10th, and I think you've been at most of them.
Yeah, most of them. I remember one year I was sitting at home polishing my motorcycle, getting it ready for next weekend's memorial ride, and here it turns out the ride was happening while I was sitting there polishing my motorcycle. I was 1 week off.
And that might be the only one you've missed.
I think so.
Yeah, but man, was that bike clean.
It was. Yeah. In fact, I probably put it in storage right after that. That looks so nice, let's just put it away.
Yeah. I remember, and I think that year, it seemed like Misty's family always had a family reunion that same weekend. And that year we made the route go so the end was near that family reunion. So you could just bail out on us and then you didn't show up anyway.
Right. I don't know where she was at the time either, because, yeah, it seems like she should have reminded me.
We could blame her.
Totally her fault. I said she was a pain in my ass.
Right. One thing I didn't ask you about, and that I have learned recently, is that you were an ATV trainer.
I was. I did that for probably about 10 years.
Explain that. How did you get into that?
We were pretty big into ATVs before my son was born. You know, every weekend we'd load them up in a trailer and go to some riding area in the state or close to the state. So we were pretty big into it, and we had bought probably 2 or 3 new ATVs in a row. And when you buy a new one, at the time, the factory would give you an incentive to take a training course. And it kind of came about back in the day when when 3-wheelers were still popular. People would buy them, get hurt, and everybody was getting sued and everything. So they came up with this training program. Nobody showed up. So they started offering like $50 or $100 to get people to come and take this course. So we had taken it 3 times ourselves, and I was interested in it. I had just gotten over a pretty big crash myself and destroyed one. And I thought maybe we could help people out and get them on the right track. And plus it paid well too. So I talked to one of the local instructors. He gave me the line and as far as, how to get started on doing it myself. So I got a hold of the ATV Safety Institute. Yeah, they sent me down to California for a week of training. And after that, I was up here doing it on my own. So on Saturdays, there'd be a big group of 4-wheelers there next to brothers. And I'd be teaching courses on Saturdays. That was kind of fun. But there again, I had left brothers. I was out of there for probably 2 years. I had kept doing it on the side anyway, but I eventually just phased myself out. I value my Saturdays.
Yeah. What kind of stuff were you training?
Basically it was geared towards a person who had never been on one before.
Oh,
so
okay.
you'd start out, like the first exercise was they'd drive like 3 feet ahead of them and hit the brakes. And once you got the brakes figured out, you'd start turning. And a lot of it was based on moving your body around. Like if you've probably ridden old 3-wheelers.
Oh, yeah.
If you didn't lean, you rolled over. And we basically treated the ATVs as if they were old 3-wheelers and just taught them to move their bodies around. And yeah, it was fun. Then, of course, you got into the responsible riding as far as tearing stuff up and everything else. It was a pretty good course.
Yeah, and I don't know that they do that anymore. Maybe they do. You'd think so.
Yeah, It seems like ATV sales have really gone down. Everybody's going to the side-by-sides. And like I said, the side-by-sides, it doesn't really matter so much. I mean, you're buckled in, you can't move around. So.
Those are the ones that need training.
Exactly.
That false sense of security they all have.
Right, and I've been on the trails with a lot of them too, and yeah, it seems like they should have something.
Yeah. And it seems like everywhere I go, you hear of somebody wrecking one and getting hurt. So, exactly. Yeah, those guys need it. Motorcycling's not your only hobby. I know you have an old car in the garage.
I do.
So, tell us about that.
Yeah, it's a 1951 Pontiac Chieftain. And what happened there was we had gone for a couple of rides in the fall on motorcycles and got really cold. And I decided, it'd be fun I like going places in the fall, state parks or Oktoberfest type stuff. I thought it'd be cool to have something special to drive around and do that. So with an old car, you'd get a heater and a windshield.
Right.
It's a good deal. So, we spent almost a year looking for stuff. And I think my only search requirements was that it had to be older than 1973. And after spending the whole summer looking around, I found that 1951 Pontiac. And, we never actually used it for what we planned on. We maybe took it for a couple trips to the Dairy Queen and stuff like that. But we ended up getting into car shows.
Tell us about those.
Yeah, they're fun. I remember the night before my first show, there was a show in Little Falls, Minnesota. And it's a pretty big show. I've known of it for years. And I was so nervous about taking my car. So I spent the whole night polishing and shining on it, trying to make it look just right, thinking I'd be criticized the whole time I'm there. And once we got to the show, all the participants, they kind of gather around and talk to each other for a little bit, once you get going. And once the spectators show up, everything changes, and it really is all about the spectator. It's I've told Misty before, we're not car showing, we're car sharing.
Sure.
And, people just come up to you and they start telling you stories about, the one that their grandpa had or the one that their uncle had or they had one and, what they paid for it, how they wrecked it. And it brings back memories for everybody. And so, yeah, it's I always thought that it was just kind of a hobby where people got together and showed off how much money they could spend. But, it's really more about sharing the cars with people that don't have them. And, people really appreciate you being there. And so we kind of got into that.
That car's for sale, right?
It is, but I can't find the right buyer. I've had a lot of people message me about it and stuff, and, they're just not the right person for it. So
like an old guy with a Road King.
Exactly.
You just need to find the right buyer for your old Pontiac.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, if you're the right one, I'd take a lot less.
So if you're interested, hit up Dylan for an old car.
Right.
Let's see. So car shows. That led you into the Top Secret Chopper project.
It did.
Talk about that.
All right.
How did that lead into the chopper?
Well, I believe this was also in Little Falls, Minnesota. But anyway, around here, the custom motorcycle scene isn't real big. There's not a lot going on. And at this car show in Little Falls, like I say, there's usually probably 400 vehicles and maybe 3 or 4 motorcycles.
That's a big show. I've never been to it.
Yeah, it fills up their fairgrounds. It's pretty cool. And but yeah, the motorcycle class is just tiny. There's usually 3 or 4 there. And one year we were down there, and there was a guy that had a brand new Street Glide. And it was loaded up with a dealer installed accessories. He had the matching jacket and T-shirt. And and he stood there all proud of it, and there was really no competition. So we didn't actually stick around until the end. But I have a feeling he got a trophy for that. And and I thought that was just horrible. So about a week later, I had brought home a used Sportster. I think it was a 1998 Sportster. And about a week after that, I had cut the frame in half, and I was building something different out of it.
And you got into all kinds of trouble on Facebook.
I did. The bike turned out to be, it was a Sportster 1200S model, which was basically a leftover Buell motor that they put in a Sportster, and they added different suspension. It had the adjustable forks, adjustable shocks in the rear. Still only about 2 inches of travel, so I don't think it made any difference, but it was marketable that way. But they were pretty rare, and people on Sportster pages really like them, and they get crabby when you cut them in half. So that was fun. Once it was done, I made sure I posted pictures on their sites. So
talk about the build, because what I think was really cool is, if I remember correctly, you had a sledgehammer and an F-150 as your basic tools for bending. I think you made your own handlebars, you made your own sissy bar.
Yeah.
Talk about the project.
Yeah, about the time I started it, I had a plan. There was going to be a lot of bolt-on parts from catalogs, and then the whole supply chain issues, and I think everybody at the time decided to take on projects, so all these readily available chopper parts didn't exist anymore. And so I had the option of either waiting, which I waited for a seat forever, ended up making my own anyway. But anyway, I got tired of waiting, so yeah, I made most of the stuff myself. Yeah, the handlebars, modified the forks myself, welded up the frame myself. Yeah, the oil tank, seat, sissy bar, rear fender. I made everything right there at home in the garage. And yeah, it's I don't have like a lot of specialized tools as far as machine work goes.
You don't have a power pipe bender. You don't have any of that stuff, do you?
I don't. So to make the sissy bar I think it's 1/2-inch round steel, solid. So I'd park my pickup truck on top of a piece of pipe that would fit in, and I'd use another piece of pipe to bend it the way I wanted it, and just kept tweaking it with my truck. And yeah, there was a lot of stuff where I used log splitters for stuff. I did all sorts of stuff to make it happen. But it all came together pretty well.
It came together really well. And this was a project to have done by the next car show in Little Falls, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think I ended up a year late. But
well, you didn't say what year. It was just
right.
by Little Falls.
Right, but we made it down there, and we showed the bike. Yeah, actually, its first bike was at the Full Throttle Saloon in Sturgis. Or its first show, was the first.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But yeah, that September we made it down to Little Falls, and we got our trophy I was looking for. So.
Nice. Nice. You can see this on Dylan's Instagram page, so we'll get you that address later, too. Or that, what do they call them? Instagram address. Handles. Labels. I don't know. On his Instagram page. Yeah, I don't know. Back in June, you did the Ride 1K in a day.
I did.
Tell us about that. People do them all the time, but what made you do this one?
Well, I believe I stumbled upon Ride 1K in a day probably the first year that he had it on Facebook. In fact, I know it was the first year because I saw him post a picture of all the patches throughout the years, and the year one was a patch that I really wanted, and I just never went out and got it. But yeah, the Ride 1K in a day is exactly what it sounds like. You get 24 hours to ride 1,000 miles, and I always wanted to do it. I just always had an excuse not to. I'd be thinking, okay, this Saturday I'm going to ride 1,000 miles. You look at the forecast and it's like, it doesn't look that great. Or maybe you have a cold or whatever the case was. So I wanted to have a way to pick a date and make myself accountable for it and just have to go either way. And another thing was I had heard of Mile Monsters Inc. not too long before it.
Yeah, you had met Riot the fall before.
You're right. I'd met Riot on the 9th annual Craig Johnson Memorial Ride. And he was talking about it. And at the time, Hopper was doing his 100,000 in 100 days. So I went home and I started following that and everything. And yeah, it was pretty cool stuff. So I wanted to do something that involved them. I thought if I'm going to be out there riding, I might as well make it a fundraiser. And that's what we did. We set up a fundraiser, picked a date, and off we went.
Went for it. Yeah, most people, you did yours with a cause. And yeah, my question was, how did that all come together? So that's you answered that. That's perfect.
And it turns out it made me a monster in the process. I didn't even know. I was a mile monster for like 2 months, and I didn't even know it. So, in fact, we were out at the finish line for the Hoka and I could have been introducing myself as the newest monster, but I didn't know, so I was just telling people I'm just the guy that wanted his own sticker.
Right. So let's talk about that sticker. You have your own sticker. I happen to have one right here.
Oh, very nice.
Huh?
Yeah, that's the one.
Is this the original, or is that version 2?
That's the second version. Yeah.
Well, let me dig deeper. So talk about this sticker. How did this come about?
Well, I noticed you had your own stickers, and a lot of these long-distance riders have their own stickers. A lot of the heroes, all of the heroes that Mile Monsters represent have their own stickers. So I was starting to feel like I was the only person in the world that didn't have his own sticker. So I wanted to make a sticker, and it turns out that everybody puts their Instagram handle on there. And I didn't even have an Instagram, so I started an Instagram, made the stickers, and now here we are.
Here we are. And the stickers, so the listeners know what we're talking about, the stickers are, anytime you go by a state sign or you go by a landmark sign or a point of interest somewhere, you see all these stickers everywhere. These are the stickers you're talking about, right? If you look at them closely, they're Mile Monster, they're long-distance riding stickers, they're overlander people living the van life. You see their stickers all over the place. These are the stickers, right? And look at that, version number 1.
Oh, there it is. Hang on to that one.
I'm a collector of Dylan Dwyer decals. So that's the story. You got your own sticker. one thing, after looking through your Instagram page that we need to talk about is Serenity the unicorn.
Oh, yeah.
So you have this unicorn on your bike, very colorful unicorn, and we see her in a bunch of your pictures. And I believe she's in your Mile Monsters profile picture as well.
She is.
Tell us about Serenity.
Okay, so my unicorn Serenity. What happened there, originally, years ago, we played this game at Christmas, and everybody wins little prizes and gifts. And my mom had bought this real weird unicorn t-shirt to put that in the game. And she kind of assumed that her granddaughter would want it. Well, anyway, I ended up with it, and I wasn't giving it up. And it's this rainbow unicorn shirt. And when we go to motorcycle rallies and stuff like that, everybody dresses the same. And I wanted to do something a little different. I'm like, I'm gonna wear that at the rally. And one thing led to another. I ended up with a whole bunch of them. I'm wearing one right now. But so I ended up with all these goofy shirts that we always wear at these motorcycle rallies with unicorns and kitty cats. And last February, I'm an alcoholic in recovery. So I celebrated 13 years last February, and I got a medallion.
Congratulations for that, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's gone well. But I got a medallion for my 13 years, and it was kind of had sparkles and unicorn glitter all over it. And I had mentioned to my wife that there was this big stuffed unicorn at the gas station that would match my medallion. And of course,
okay.
I got that as a gift. And we posted pictures of it, and I got like 150 some odd comments, people cheering me on and congratulating me and everything else. So the way that it ended up being is, Serenity represents like 100 and some odd people that cheered me on in sobriety.
Oh, and that's cool.
So I started bringing her with me on the motorcycle everywhere we went to remind me to behave, and she holds me accountable. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. People always, when we stop and get gas or whatever, people always ask about the unicorn, and in such cases, I can give them a sticker or tell them what I'm up to or whatever, and it's been fun.
So your incognito secret black bagger project is kind of an attractive piece sitting in the parking lot.
It is. Well, nobody asks about the motorcycle.
No.
It's just that $20 unicorn in the back that they really concern themselves with. But
that's funny. You mentioned the next question I have, and that's, what's the deal with the tie-dye kitty cat t-shirts? So you kind of alluded to that. So
right. So yeah, you go to a motorcycle rally, I'm usually the only one. So
you're always the only one.
But yeah, I get a lot of compliments on that too. People always say you're going to get your ass kicked wearing that or whatever. And, well, number one, it's worth it. But number two, it's people really seem to like it. I get a lot of compliments. People say, "Hey, nice shirt" and stuff like that. So
yeah, it's awesome. And we can always pick you out of the crowd because you're not dressed like everybody else.
Exactly.
Like you said. So your wife knows that you're here, and I'm supposed to get the story here, but what's the deal with the mullet? Because it's even part of your sticker.
It is. There's another thing. I work in a small town. I'm a UPS driver.
Yep.
And I knew I had this fundraiser coming up, and I don't really know any of the people down there where I work. So I decided to get some crazy hair. And of course, right away, they're like, "Hey, what's up with the hair?" And I'd tell them about my fundraiser coming up. So it's just something, one more little way of plugging that and get another $5 here and there, $10. And so that's kind of how it started. But then we kind of fell in love with it. So we're going to keep it going for another year. Then, of course, like I say, on my Mile Monsters website profile, of course, he introduces me as the mullet guy or whatever. I don't remember how it's worded, but so yeah, I'm kind of stuck with it for a little while.
Yeah, at least for a while.
Yeah.
Talk about the fundraiser. You did it as a Mile Monster. You had a goal, and you just annihilated your goal, didn't you?
We did. Yeah, this was the first time I'd ever organized a fundraiser. I wasn't too nervous about riding the motorcycle. I had never documented it, but I'm pretty sure I've gone 1,000 miles in 24 hours before. Mm-hmm. And I've gone like 700-800 miles, taken a nap and gone further. So I knew what that was all about. But yeah, I had no idea what to expect with a fundraiser. And my biggest fear was to have it just fall flat on its face. So I was doing things like the hair and everything else. Like I say, I thought I'd have to go for every little way to get $5 or $10, and hopefully they'd add up. But as soon as the fundraiser launched, it was like 2 weeks before my ride, and all of a sudden the 20s came in, 100s came in, 50s came in. Everybody just went hog wild as far as giving, and that was amazing. Yeah, I had beat my goal before the ride even started. Mm-hmm. And so the pressure was off there too. And yeah, people just kept going. I couldn't believe how people gave. In fact, I had been given to a lot of different charities this year myself, and everybody showed me that I had to step up my game.
Sure.
I thought $20 was like really generous. Now I'm thinking, okay, I got to go 100 or 200.
Yeah, it's funny because we think of these, school fundraisers as kind of all I've ever known. I don't know if you know different, but, the little church ones here and there, but they're always, like you say, 20, 10, 20, $5, whatever, and that's pretty good. But it seems like in the motorcycle community, these things, bikers are raising a ton of money for a lot of good causes.
They are. Yeah, it's amazing. They're just really generous people. There's no other way to describe it.
Yeah. When you did your ride, it was awesome. I like how you had everything laid out. You had everything, you had your scheduled posts, and then you took pictures, and you were really on top of keeping people with you without, being on the motorcycle. Everybody could follow your trip, and you were finding points of interest and keeping everybody involved. So I think that was a great job.
Yeah, that was a huge part of my goal. There's no sense in being out there doing something if nobody can see it.
Yeah.
And I kind of like sharing little experiences throughout the day on social media anyway, so that was easy. But yeah, I wanted to definitely keep people following along. And I heard people even mention, hey, we've been watching this all day, or my whole family's been watching this, and I could see the comments. So I knew it was working, and yeah, that was fun. It was like I was riding with just a whole bunch of friends, and yeah, that was definitely a good time. I can't wait to do something like that again.
Well, we're going to. In 2023, I know we got a ride or two put together where we'll be doing a lot of that social media stuff and trying to raise money and trying to raise more than, I'm hoping more than we both did in 22. So we're looking forward to that. And same thing, we're going to hope to take everybody with us. So everybody listening, keep an eye on Dylan and my pages moving forward.
Yeah, like I say, it'd be fun to go out and see how fast a person could run, 1,000 miles or 2,000 miles, or what you can get done in a day or 2 days, 3 days. But yeah, you can always do that on your own. If you're doing a fundraiser, I think it's well worth it to slow things down and bring people along.
Yeah, and one of the trip, I don't want to say anything in the details, but that'll be a slow, check it out, share the experience of a pretty cool ride that I don't know that most people even realizes here in Minnesota. So
right on.
I think people know about it, but they don't really ever think about it. So hopefully we can plant that seed and get some other people running that same route.
Right on.
So we got a couple, but are there any other future rides that you can talk about?
That I can talk about?
And you don't have to, because we know, I know things are coming, but I'm not going to tell people. I know what some of the stuff you got coming up, but we don't have to tell details, but we just need to keep an eye on your page, right?
Right, and I guess I can mention what it's going to be based on.
I don't know that you want to talk about all of it. Because I think somebody might try to beat you to it.
Okay, so we're just not going to talk about this. We're going to delete all of that. But yeah, I do have something that I think will be kind of fun coming up. I think it'll be fun to watch. I don't know if it'll be real fun for me. I think a lot of the excitement is to push myself to do something a little bit harder every time. And, eventually I'll probably end up failing. Of course, if you're having fun and people are following along and you're raising money, I don't know if there is such a thing as a fail. But I definitely want to keep making things more difficult. And once I fail, or if I fail, I'll just take a step backwards and start over again. And so yeah, I do have something kind of fun coming up, hopefully early spring.
I'm looking forward to it. That one's going to be cool. Let's see. So the other thing I wanted to mention, and I was trying to quietly type this out because I forgot to put it in my notes. You have a very thoughtful and very creative post that I see on Facebook every Friday. The Friday Cup. Talk about that, because there's got to be something behind it. It's such a cool post. I don't know, maybe it's just me that thinks it, but
yeah, I don't even remember how it got started. I think I've been doing it a couple of years now. Yeah, every Friday afternoon I've got a coffee cup. It's not even necessarily my favorite coffee cup, but
but it's just a coffee cup.
All right, it's the Friday Cup. It's the one I use. And I just find a place, set it down, take a picture of it, and say something about the week or what's on my mind. I usually have no plan until I get home. And so that's just a weekly thing that I do is the Friday Cup.
Well, if you're friends with Dylan on Facebook, you are privy to the Friday Cup.
Exactly.
What did I miss anything? Anything you can think of we need to talk about that we didn't?
I think we were pretty thorough.
Okay, perfect. That leads us to the 5 questions.
Oh, boy.
The under the breath grumblings of the 5 questions. You ready for this?
I am ready.
All right. Randomly picked. These go on a randomizer wheel. Easy for me to say. If you Google it, you can find I can't remember what it's called, like the name randomizing wheel. And then I just put in numbers and then click the button and I have 20 questions and 5 are randomly chosen. So your number one question is, what is the worst advice you see or hear being dispensed in the motorcycling community?
Okay, I know what this is. In fact, I think your last podcast, I think the person on that mentioned the same thing.
One of them, yeah. Or it'll tell us how far behind you are in listening.
Right. But it's basically, I hear it all the time. I hear people telling each other what they need, especially someone new to the hobby. You need these handlebars, or you need this jacket, you need this, you need that. And I think a lot of times that's not the greatest advice. Even as far as advice on, which motorcycle you need. People were to ask me, if they were going to get into riding, and they ask what kind of motorcycle they should get, I say just whatever kind of turns you on at the minute, because it's going to be the wrong one anyway. So you're going to, nobody just buys one bike and keeps it forever. So just buy something. Yeah, I always hear people say, you need this, you need that. And it's usually more or less what they wish they'd have bought, or what they wish they had, or something they have that maybe they like and it works great for them, but it's not going to work real good for someone else. So as far as, equipment and everything else, kind of figure it out as you go. I mean, there's no rush.
Yeah, exactly. So the worst advice is telling people what they need, and I think I would agree with that. Question number 2. What is something you believe that other people think is insane?
I think I'm going to go ahead and mention that I have a pretty good Sasquatch story. And a lot of people might think that's insane, but I'm not going to tell it here, but
a good campfire story?
It is.
I might be one that doesn't think that's insane. So maybe it's a Minnesota thing. But yes, I would believe other people definitely think that would be insane.
Yeah, there's a lot of things we don't know.
There is, for sure. Question number 3. What topic would you speak about if you were asked to give a TED Talk on something outside of your main area of expertise?
I would say I could fill an hour just discussing golf.
Golf?
Yeah.
Do you golf?
No. I went one time probably 30 years ago. So that qualifies me.
That would qualify you, yes. Definitely outside your area of expertise.
I know you need more than one club. That's about it.
Are you giving bad advice to golfers?
Yeah. Well, I won't tell them which club they need. They're on their own as far as picking their favorite.
Right. Okay. Question number 4. How would you describe motorcycling to somebody that has never ridden a motorcycle?
It's not too often I talk to somebody that's never ridden a motorcycle. But
yeah.
But yeah, I would say it's, I ride a lot without windshields and without fairings. There's nothing in front of me. So I'd say it's more like, you can run as fast as you want to run. You can fly as high as you want to fly, especially like a dirt bike or whatever. It kind of turns you into superhuman. You can do anything. It's a tool that allows you to basically move as fast and as free as you want. And there's just a real freedom or feeling of freedom involved with it. You can, it makes you more than human. It's a great tool.
That's a great thing. Great way to explain it. Question number 5, our final question, kind of 2-part question. What have you changed your mind about in the last few years and why?
Alrighty. I would say it's my approach to the newcomer in the motorcycle hobby.
Easy one.
It is. But I always like to, I still do pick on people, but you can spot the new guy, like they'll show up at a ride or something like that, or some sort of group or a rally. They're the ones that are putting out the tough guy vibe and everything else, and I always just kind of laughed about them, but the more I get to thinking about it, it's nice to see. It's great when somebody wants to try something new. This motorcycle community is, we mentioned even as far as charities go and everything else, but the motorcycle community is full of great people, and it's real easy to get in. All you have to do is just buy a ticket. You buy a motorcycle and you're in. Like, we've been in the car show hobby for 7 or 8 years, and they were really slow to let us in.
Really?
Yep. They'd talk to us, but nobody really became friends until probably a year or 2 ago. Probably about the time that Misty bought her truck. But it's great seeing new people. And like I said, the ones that are bad eggs, they weed themselves out. And the rest of them just keep on evolving and growing, and they become part of it. And it's great to see. So, yeah, if you're new and you show up with your brand new Harley gear and everything else on, I'm not going to pick on you. Well, I'll pick on you, but it's out of love. Yeah, I really like new people in the hobby.
Oh, that's good. I like it. Do you have any asks or requests for the listeners?
Not really. I'm saying just get out there and have fun.
Give us the addresses. Where can we follow you? Where can we find you? The handles. I got to figure out what the hell they're called. I can't even think of it.
I think it's called a handle, but I'm not sure.
What's your name on Instagram and Facebook?
My Instagram name is at Dylan Dwyer Rules. So it's just DYLAN DWYER RULES. And I'm not on there too often. Like I say, I started the Instagram just because of my sticker, and I needed the sticker because of the Instagram. So we're not too busy on there, but that'll get better. But yeah, I'm on Facebook quite a bit, just Dylan Dwyer. And I have a Twitter that I've posted on one time, so I wouldn't even bother going there. But yeah, that's, like I said, Facebook is kind of my main go-to. I've been there forever, and I know how it works. I can find stuff on there. Instagram's still a little bit confusing for me. I learned how to make a reel the other day, so that was kind of fun.
That's something new, yeah. I just grabbed my phone and checked, and you currently have 38 followers. So, people, you could really get in on the ground level of something awesome here.
Yeah, this is going to be huge.
Do you have any final words, last parting words?
Not really.
Yeah, this is always a stumper for me. I'm getting better now that I do this more and more. But one thing we have to say, in the listeners, we got into this little bit of banter, if you've seen it on Facebook, that Twister is just annihilating. She's got more plays than everybody. And Dylan needs your shares because he wants to beat Twister.
Yeah, well, it's not even for me. I think it's for the whole podcast community. We can't just have her running away with it like that. Everybody else needs their shot. I know Riot's pretty broken up about it.
Yeah, he's having a hard time. Hopper, he publicly is disgruntled.
Right. So yeah, they're a pretty competitive bunch. In fact, I got called a wee man yesterday. So maybe it was the day before, but
well, you're getting over that. I mean, You got Instagram, you got your own sticker, and now you're on a podcast. So it's like welcome to big time, Dylan Dwyer.
Exactly, and mine's going to probably get more listens than Riot's, but probably not quite as many as Twister's. So I'm hoping to kind of land in the middle.
We got a range there somewhere. So awesome. All right, folks, if you like what you're hearing, hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. You can follow the adventures on Facebook or Instagram by looking for The Real Wild Ass. Of course, I am Wild Ass Craig. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you again in a couple weeks. And, of course, thank you again, Dylan, for coming in and being my first live in-studio guest.
It was my honor. It was great being here.
It was a good time. Thank you.
Thank you.